da im se svima, i malima i velikima, i bogatima i siromašnima, i slobodnjacima i robovima dade žig na njihovu desnu ruku ili na čela njihova, te da nitko ne može ništa kupiti ili prodati.
Pozdrav dragi narode, dobrodošli još na ovu epizodu Slobodnog podcasta. Moje ime je Andrija Klarić. Danas imam opet posebnu čast, jednu posebnu gošću i zato ću nastavak ove emisije imati na engleskom jeziku. Welcome folks, my name is Andrija Klarić and today's guest is special lady coming from special country and her name is Elsa Widding. She is a member of Swedish parliament, but the best way is for her to say a few words about herself. Hello, Elsa.
Hello. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for your time. Can you tell us a few words about yourself?
Well, I'm 55 years old and I'm quite new in politics, and I've worked my almost entire life in the energy business for all the big utilities in Norway, Sweden and also Finland. Vattenfall in Sweden, Statkraft in Norway and Fortum in Finland. And also worked for the government for a few years, responsible for the big utility in Sweden, for the state-owned companies. And now I have moved into politics since last autumn. Because
Yes.
we have a lot of challenges in Sweden with the energy system. So the purpose was really to trying to contribute with my knowledge.
Yes, it seems so that it was the right way to talk about politics now because something is happening with you in your political career now.
Yeah, well, I choose to leave my party only last Monday. And, you know the reason, I guess.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the reasons today. Well, let's go straight to the point. Is there any climate emergency right now in the world?
I don't think there's a climate emergency. I think it's very important that we follow this important topic. And I have written a book and I have spent years with this topic, really analyzing all the data and working with a lot of professors about what IPCC is saying in the huge scientific reports of IPCC, and I can say that the conclusion is that there's not climate emergency.
Okay, can you tell us what is really the situation with climate? Everybody's talking about climate urgency, talking about that we really don't have more time, we have to act quickly. What is your opinion about this?
Well, to make a long story short, I would say that if we go back only to the last big assessment report in 2013, IPCC used a very extreme scenario as the reference scenario, saying that we are afraid or we expect the emissions to go up to 100 gigaton carbon dioxide per year in 2100 by the end of the century. This time, the last report from only less than a year ago, IPCC are now saying that no, we are not, this is not very likely anymore with these extreme scenarios, but we are rather, the world is following a middle scenario where we believe that emissions will go down to 10 gigaton carbon dioxide per year. And that is really good news. And the reason is, of course, that we expect China and India to reduce emissions around 2060, something like that. So it doesn't look too bad.
Well, what do you think about policy of European Union concerning that? Because they are turning, I think, just a week ago, they signed the contract for the future that will bring up some new things from 2025, I think. And there are additional taxes for carbon dioxide. What do you say about their policy now?
I think the policy of making people a lot more poor is not a very good policy, and it will have very limited effect on climate. if you want to figure out what the world will look like in the future, it's very important to try to understand that the Western world is only 1/8 of the total entire world. So you have to look at what is the rest of the major part, what are they up to and what are they doing and what are the reasons for their behavior. And I think this is exactly what IPCC has done when we are looking at the middle scenario. So I think it's very important that we don't do things that make us much poorer, because that will not be any benefit at all. It would just create a lot of environmental problems.
Mm-hmm. Can you just explain us what this middle scenario means?
Well, middle scenario is just what I try to explain. It's a scenario where we are today a little bit below 40 gigaton per year in emissions of the entire world. And IPCC in this middle scenario, we are expected to go up a little bit, but not so much. And after 2060, the curve will start to go down, and we will emit only 10 by the end of the century. So we don't expect the world, it's not a crisis, because we have just left the scenario where we believe that the world will emit enormously a lot of carbon dioxide. So it's not a catastrophe.
And how is actual energy policy connected to climate changes?
Well, I mean, if you take Sweden, for example, we emit, in our energy system, we emit approximately 12 gram carbon dioxide per each produced kilowatt hour. If you compare with Poland, they emit something like 750 or something like that. And so Sweden, our energy system was actually built with very, very low emissions of carbon dioxide, with nuclear power and hydropower in the north, nuclear power in the south. And now we are closing down our nuclear powers and we are building wind power, which means that with all that wind power and nothing to stabilize the grid, it's a bit technical, but you could say that our energy transformation will definitely lead us to much more emissions, not less. And this is due to the strategy of building a lot of wind power. So I would say that the only conclusion for us, the only way we could actually take down emissions is by building nuclear power, not wind power. Wind power will cause a lot of energy, a lot of environmental problems, as well as a need for more fossil fuels.
Tell me, according to this example of Sweden, what is the impact on the environment, these renewable energies?
Well, I mean, the renewable energy, we are now trying to build a lot of wind power, and you know that there's a quite large environmental impact building wind power. It's only the wind in itself that is renewable, nothing else, with all the concrete constructions and all the steel and all these metals and the micro plastics and PFAS, and there's all sorts of environmental problems with wind power. So where we are now ending up is that we are very afraid that we have to cut off the electricity. And we also can see in the market that there's not so much investments anymore. People stop to invest because we don't have this very secure system anymore that we used to have. So Sweden we really had an excellent energy system. And since we started to decommission, take out nuclear plants too early, and instead invest in wind power, nothing has improved. Everything has become very, very much more unpredictable, and energy prices has gone up, and there's really nothing good with it.
You were talking a lot about energy grid is unstable. Can you explain us what this means according to Sweden example?
Well, you know, when I say that the grid is unstable, that means that it's difficult to get the right pressure in the grid. You need big generators to stabilize the grid, and you can only achieve that by nuclear, large hydro plants, oil plants, gas plants, or coal plants. So you can choose what you want, but it's not you can't achieve this stability with wind power. So that's the problem. So in the south, we are lacking capacity, you could say, to stabilize the grid. So no matter how much wind power we build, the grid is still in big danger. So that's why we have to run our fossil fuel plants to stabilize the grid now.
How you comment prices? What are in for fossil fuels, exactly for oil and gas in the last year? They exploded. What do you think? What is the reason?
Well, of course, we know that the gas prices, we used to get a lot of gas from Russia, of course, and now we have to buy the gas LNG from the States. And I think the oil prices, I mean, we have had a strategy in Europe of running everything on electricity, and there's not been enough of investments in the oil business. So I think we have to be aware that what we want to take out is first of all, is carbon. It's not really oil. So we don't want these high oil prices. It's not so high right now, but we have to see. We have to consider what we can do short term and what we can do long term. But I think the most important of everything is that the system really works. So, and I mean, we now at the moment we blame everything, of course, on the climate crisis, which I think is really stupid. It's not a big crisis, and we will never reach this 1.5 goal. Of course, we're almost at 1.3 already. So it's really stupid. If we should try to reach 1.5, we would have to shut down everything right now, and it wouldn't help anyhow. So, I mean, 80% of the energy use in the world is fossil fuels. So we have to, I would say that the message is that we do have time. So we can fulfill all our goals, but we have to do it in a reasonable time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we lead to catastrophe.
There is no logic. They are saying that expenses, exactly prices of gas and oil went up because of crisis. But now we see last year was a record profit year for oil companies.
Yeah.
That doesn't make logic. If really price went up because of costs, that doesn't bring so much profit. And how you can explain it that really they made really the big success ever in oil companies?
Well, because there's not enough exploration. So
you mean they
more
didn't
investment
explore enough? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, they didn't explore enough, and now demand for gas is still high and oil, and they are used the situation to make more money.
Yeah.
It seems too that we're paying a higher price without necessity to do it. What is the reason? Is there a political reason or something else behind?
I don't know. I think maybe I'm not the right person to answer to that question.
Yeah, maybe right now. And tell me, what is really, according to your opinion, what is really the right path to satisfy these climate changes together and also other things like development, investing in energy and a stable grid, electrical grid? You mentioned that nuclear power plant are the solution, but now we are closing in Europe. Germany closed all power plants. You said Sweden also. What is now?
It doesn't make any sense at all. So, I mean, you have to decide if you are concerned about climate and if you want to take down emissions. There's no other way, at least not for our country. And you have to do it in the right pace. You have to look at what are the possibilities for each country. You can't change it. Like Poland, for example, they can't change everything will have to take time, and we do have time. And we also have to look at, Europe is maybe 7% of the entire emissions in the world. So even if we do our very best, we will become very poor, of course, and the rest of the world will become much richer, and I can't really see the point of that. So I think we have to take it not so stressful. Not we have to just hold our horses, you can say.
Well,
And,
you said that we have a time. They said until 2020 there will be additional taxes, and also we have to be carbon dioxide neutral until 2050. What is your estimation? How much time we have?
No, I think we definitely have. I mean, IPCC, they predict that the temperature will continue to increase with approximately 1.3 degrees. We started to measure in a very, very cold period between 1850 and 1900. That was the coldest period in 4,000 years. That's the starting point. And now IPCC are saying that temperature will increase up to around 2.7 degrees by the end of the century. And that is not a big catastrophe, first of all. So if it becomes a little bit warmer, I mean, the biggest effect is, of course, up in the north, where it's already too cold. So, and it's still not as warm as it used to be 6,000 years ago, far from. So what is the big problem? This is a problem that we are creating. We try to create this problem. So because it's more like we have a solution, so we need to find a problem, not the other way around.
Yeah.
We have a solution that needs a problem, so now this is a problem that we're making up.
No, we're making problems, now we have to find solutions. Yeah.
No, the other way around. We have a solution. We want everyone to run wind power and solar, and then we have to find the problem. And the problem should be that we are afraid that the temperature is increasing in the same trend as from 1970. It's 0.14 degrees every decennium. When you measure with satellites, and if you measure close to the ground, 2 meters from the ground is 0.19 degrees per decennium, 10 years. So, I mean, it's the same trend, and it's not expected to increase or anything. So if you look at the average over the 30-year period to 1990 until 2020, we are approximately at that average. Last month it was 0.18 over, and the month before it was maybe 0.008. So approximately there. So it's nothing dramatic happening. And the weather is not becoming more extreme because of the carbon dioxide. Not at all. That's not what these reports are saying. The only thing they're saying now in the last report, assessment report 6, is that heat waves are becoming a little bit more frequent. But that's about it.
Well, I heard some scientists saying temperature does not increase. Depends what period you are measuring. If you are measuring 100 years, it's different. When you're measuring 400 years, or even some measures are coming from 100,000 years. And they said, if you measure it, climate changes, exactly this changing of CO2 and temperature is something irregular, what happened already before.
Of course. I mean, we're in this middle ice age period now. It's approximately 11,000 years in. So we're at the end of a middle ice age, or in what's it called in English? We have the ice ages, 100,000 years, and then approximately 10,000 years with warmer climate. And during these 11,000 years, we're in the 10th warm period. And most of the periods before this one has been warmer. So now it's approximately, scientists are not really agreeing on if it's colder than 1,000 years ago. It depends if we look global or not. But you could say that it's approximately as warm as 2,000 years ago now. And before that, it was warmer. So, I mean, it's nothing exceptional happening. Although I don't deny in any way that carbon dioxide do affect temperature. And we don't know how much is caused by humans. But even if everything is caused by humans, as IPCC are predicting, they're saying that temperature has increased 1.2 or 1.3 degrees since 1850. And only 0.1 degrees is depending on natural causes, and the rest is depending on us humans. But it's still not a catastrophe. So that's the big difference. So don't scare small children, don't scare society. It's really not necessary if you study the science behind this. Don't scare small children, don't scare society. It's really not necessary if you study the science behind this.
Yes, I saw some measures where they say the first temperature was rising and then CO2 was rising, not other way. Not that CO2 impacted on rising temperature. It was other way around. Only it's matter how long period you are measuring.
Of course, that is correct. It's just that I have decided to stick completely to those assessment report from IPCC. So when I discuss, I really want to follow the assessment reports from IPCC in order to discuss the same fact-based and how we analyze that and the conclusion that we draw from that material. But you're absolutely correct anyhow. So I'm not objecting against the same material that our politicians should really look at.
Okay, then in this case, it seems so that, as you said already before, that we need to have more science in politics and less politics in the science.
Definitely. And we also have to look at what is the best for our country. What can we really do? Because now in Sweden we have energy policy that is really not helping the climate at all. It's just making us much poorer. Energy prices are going up and we are emitting more carbon dioxide, not less. So it doesn't really stick together.
Well, then we have to find the reason why they are making these policies. Because this policy seems to, in the short future, bring us some new things. For example, we here in Croatia now have a pilot project called 15-minute city. Some says, the politician official says that it's just for people to have easier way to find everything what they need in 15 minutes walking from their homes. Other skeptics says, no, this is just preparation for the future, taking civil and human rights and put us in 50 minutes ghetto, somebody call it, because they have some other plans. And climate is only just excuse to implement it.
Climate is a very good excuse for many different things. So, I mean, it's really interesting that the best climate scientists that we do have in Sweden, and we have Lennart Bengtsson, he's a professor in meteorology, and he is really the only person in Sweden that IPCC are actually referring to in this scientific work. You never hear him in the debate. He's not, no one's interested in what science is saying. It's just the political messaging. So it's really pity. This has nothing to do. This is a religion. It's not about science anymore. It's just religion.
Well, I have to say that remind me of something. Last 3 years we had a similar thing with pandemic, where we could see on television only scientists, they said they are scientists and experts, who are telling official narrative. Everybody else who are opposing, everybody else who asking question was gaslighting or he was censored. Now this looks very similar.
Yeah, well, I think the climate issue has been there for quite some time, and it's just progressing slowly. Now maybe it's faster, but it's a disaster.
Okay.
And in Sweden, we have these narratives. You're not allowed to talk about anything anymore. You're not allowed to question. So we have to question more. That's the only way. So it's just amazing, so important issues, and you're not allowed to question. You just swallow the narrative.
Yeah, that's why you were attacked on the media when you were in Stavanger on this conference where you presented your findings. you were really hard attacked, and maybe this is the reason why you left your party.
Yeah, I left. I like my party. It's just that I think enough is enough. You have to defend your friends against these lunatics. It's so crazy. And also one of our ministers were sort of accusing me for really awful things. And I think if that is not raised up and really discussed thoroughly, then we are in big trouble. So that's why I just thought, well, I'll leave the party and I will make the big mess myself. I want to bring this up, I want to discuss it, and I want to make a big point out of this, that someone has passed the red line of what is accepted, because this is just a way of quiet people, and in this case myself, to make me shut up and not talk about sensitive issues. And it was nothing about my presentation, which was only about energy and climate, but rather attending a conference where media tried to say that this was a conference about something that it was definitely not, and just making a big story that it was about the Holocaust and things like that. Not that it was professors presenting their findings and bringing up scientific reports, and so it's just a way of trying to quiet people, which I think is unacceptable.
Yes, in media they said that you are anti-vaxxer, also that you are climate denier, and also Holocaust denier.
Yeah, that was going too far, I think. Because the competence level with our education minister, for example, he doesn't know anything, and okay, I can accept that. He doesn't understand these issues, so he can call me climate denier. I can put up with that, because it's just too stupid, and I think most people understand that this is definitely not true. But this nonsense about the Holocaust is just not acceptable.
Well, in this conference, there was nothing about Holocaust. Nobody was mentioning it. That was not topic, and nobody was talking about. I don't understand.
I never even heard that anyone even questioned it, so I never even, thought about that more than what I've learned in school. And it's such an awful crime, and so this is how they do it, together with media, trying to suppress people with those. It's just awful. That's what it is.
Yeah, similar thing happened to your colleague in Great Britain, Andrew Bridgen. Yeah. He was also president of the conference, and after that, not only because of it, but that was something also that didn't help, he was also expelled from the Conservative Party. He was 15 years in this party, he was winning 3 elections in a row, and now he was expelled just because he was asking questions and just because he was telling unpleasant truth, official truth, that's numbers from...
scientific truths. Yeah, but this is the new world we're living in.
Well, we have a similar thing in Croatia here. Whoever spoke last 3 years and making any kind of question what is not according official narrative was also expelled from the media, mainstream media, and also was calling anti-vax, anti-science, anti-something, because they find always some very rude words. What do you think? Why it's happening everywhere in Europe?
Very strong forces, I guess, but isn't it just amazing? My father was a professor, and I'm really used to questioning, and I think in such an important way, this is about our health. So if a very competent, experienced professor is saying something against the narrative, why shouldn't we listen? I mean, these people, these professors, they have absolutely nothing to gain to go out and warn and say that we have to rethink certain things. I mean, it's really my duty as a politician to listen. What do they have to say? Let them talk. And then you would expect a debate between different views. That is really what science is all about. And we do get new information on this topic every day. So we don't have the whole story yet. It's about our children, it's about health. I've taken all vaccines throughout my entire life. I'm definitely not an anti-vaxxer, but I do have big respect for science. Well, and it should not be quiet.
What do you think for the next period? In Croatia, our Prime Minister says that he will be focused on the climate changes next year. At the same time, he mentioned that he will make focus also on renewing energy sources. What this means? How he can explain this kind of policy?
Yeah, well, I think in Europe, they have more or less, they decide everything in Sweden, more or less. So they have decided that we should build, they want us to build wind power. That doesn't solve our problem. We can have a certain amount or percentage of wind power, absolutely. But I mean, what is happening here is that we are increasing our demand for electricity, which is crazy. First, we decommission our nuclear plants, and then we increase our demand of electricity. It doesn't make sense. So I don't know if I was answering your questions, but I think we are running towards a complete disaster unless we start to build big nuclear plants. If we want to even go close to our climate goals, we need to build nuclear plants. We won't reach those goals anyhow, but we will come closer. And for Sweden, for example, what we could do if we wanted to take down emissions, of course, we could build a number of big nuclear plants and export more electricity, which will then take out the carbon fire plants in Poland will run less hours. So that would be the best way of reaching our climate goals. So you have to look at the whole system. You cannot only look country-wise. And I'm not too familiar with your energy system, but what do you have to run when the wind is not blowing? And you have to have a backup system. So is that carbon? Germany is now increasing emissions, of course. They run a lot of coal-fired plants. They will never reach a high level of renewables. Of course not.
That means Germany is now producing more carbon than before.
Yeah, of course. Of course. They're decommissioning nuclear plants, so of course they are. And they will probably increase even more. The more wind power you build, the more fossil fuel you need.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. But tell me, can we, according to this policy, expect in the future cheaper price of energy in a short or a long term?
No, it will not be cheaper. It will be very volatile. It will go up and down. So you have to have a lot of technical solutions. In Sweden, for example, we have a lot of district CHP. And of course, we can do a few things with that. But there's no really quick solution to this at all. So we have to get used to very high prices.
How we can use...
Sometimes low, but sometimes high. And then we have all the cables. So, I mean, it's a little bit technical, of course. But I think when we decided to go for a European market, we expected Germany to have a functioning energy system. And that is not the case anymore, which is causing us a lot of problems in Sweden.
And how can you get used to high energy prices if we don't have money? Now in Croatia we have subsidizing state. They said state, but it's our money, taxpayers' money. They're subsidizing our bills, just for, of course, for people, not for industry. And if they're subsidizing, they are paying from other sources. They cannot last forever. They have to be stopped.
It's the same in Sweden.
Same in Sweden. Yeah. Can you tell us what is happening now in Sweden?
Well, they are also subsidizing people's energy bills and are now moving to the next step also to subsidize companies. And you could say in Sweden, we don't have any energy costing more than 0.6 euro or how do you say 60 öre, which is approximately 0.6 euros per kilowatt hour. Still, we pay 4 times as much. And that is because the cost for the system in Germany. So that is really, we are getting the prices in Germany. So people are really very unhappy with this system where we pay the prices set in Germany. So someone is, of course, earning a lot of money here, the producers, because they get very much paid. So something needs to happen.
Well, this money, where it's coming from? This subsidizing money that's coming from our budget, or for on the price of profit of state-owned companies?
No, it's not coming from state-owned companies. It's coming from our grid operator. Big part is coming from our grid operator, who, because we have different price areas in Sweden, and they earn quite a lot between these different price areas. So you could say that the state gets a big share of this money, and now they're paying it back to the consumers, but they're not paying back everything, and they're not paying back so much in the north. So it's a problem, you could say.
Yeah, and as you mentioned already, we get lots of supply for gas and oil from Russia, and now, because of this war, we are buying everything from United States. Well, we are fighting in Europe, and somebody else is taking more profit from it. How long we can proceed with this? How long we have time or money to continue with this policy?
I don't know, but I think the scary thing is that we should just make a halt, just take a break with this, stop talking about climate change, because that's not a major problem, and just make sure that people get cheap energy. That's the most important. I think in this situation, to start to talk about climate change, at the same time, India, China, and a lot of other countries are really emitting, building new power plants every week, and we are not allowed to get any energy at all, hardly, or at a very high cost. That is not a good climate policy.
Okay, if we can conclude at the end, we can conclude that we are paying a higher price, but that because of wrong policies, energy policies, not because it's necessary to do it.
No, that's true. It's a political game.
Political game, yeah. That's what I thought. But okay, we are here to talk about this, to try to open discussion about this. I hope in Croatia we will discuss more, because these expenses are last already for 2 years, and it will last who knows how long. And I'm not sure if we have enough money for it.
Yeah.
Well, Elsa, it was really a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your research. I wish you all the best in your political career, and I hope that people will listen to this and think over it, because we don't have much time. We spend already so much money, and energy is something that we cannot live without.
No, that's very true. Thank you so much.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.
Evo, dragi narode, imali ste prilike čuti raspravu o temi koja se kod nas ne smije raspravljati. Naime, ako postavite pitanje za klimatske promjene, odmah postajete climate denier, dakle neko ko negira, ne neko ko postavlja logična pitanja, ne neko ko želi raspravljati o temi, nego neko ko nešto pokušava proglasiti pogrešnim. Iako je to nešto što se tiče svih nas i svaki dan u našem životu. Sličnu situaciju smo, kao što ste primijetili, imali i za vrijeme pandemije. Koji god je doktor, znanstvenik došao i postavio pitanje da li su mjere koje se provode dobre, dobio je izgon iz mainstream medija i proglašavanje od strane vladajući antivakserom. Čak i ljudi, pošto sad i susrećemo u svijetu, a sa nekima sam ja razgovarao, koji su cijepljeni po 2 puta, pa su nakon toga požalili i oni su proglašavani antivakserima. Pa mi možemo to reći da su i antivakseri oni koji nisu primili 4., 5. ili 6. dozu, jer koliko znam, Europska komisija nam je namijenila 10 njih. To znači, ako stane kod bilo koje doze, to znači da ste antivakser. Zašto ovo govorim? Zato što ima puno sličnosti između klimatske politike i onoga što mi danas doživljavamo vezano za klimatsku politiku. Dakle, kao što sam već spomenuo u intervjuu, naš premijer je rekao da je to fokus u sljedećem razdoblju I sada imamo i svjedočimo u Hrvatskoj, odnosno u Zagrebu, program koji se naziva 15-minutni gradovi. Dakle, oni nam objašnjavaju da ćemo mi imati sve na 15 minuta udaljenosti od našeg doma. I vrtić, i školu, i dućane, i sve ono što želimo i da neće biti potrebe da se vozimo. Sad, da li je to pitanje da neće biti potrebe da se vozimo ili je to priprema da nas nauče da se nećemo u budućnosti ni voziti? Kako bi eventualno zaštitili naš planet? Ili kako bi učinili nešto dobro za širu zajednicu? To vas podsjeća vjerojatno i na ono cijepite se, mislite na druge. Znali smo da cijepljenje se ne zaustavlja širenje i oni su znali da se ne zaustavlja širenje, međutim propagandni slogan je bio misli na druge, cijepi se. Tako i ovdje. Misli na sve druge, misli na klimu, misli na planet i nemoj hodati više od 15 minuta od kuće. Odnosno, nemoj se voziti automobilom. A ako se voziš, voziš i električnim automobilom. I ako se i taj električni automobil napaja od struje koja se proizvodi od ne znamo točno kojih izvora, ali po sadašnjem svjedočenju svih onih koji su stručnjaci, ti su izvori još uvijek nafta i ugljen i plin i da se na duži period neće tako lako moći zamijeniti, osim za izuzetno visoki trošak koji si mi ne možemo priuštiti. Evo, ovo je tema koju ćemo mi još razgovarati, sigurno ne samo sa političarima, nego i sa znanstvenicima. To su teme koje nas sve muče. I kako bi više čuli od onome što je gospođa Elsa govorila, stavit ću vam najvažnije dijelove njene prezentacije koju je prezentirala u Stavangeru u Norveškoj, gdje sam imao prilike sudjelovati, gdje je prezentirala njena saznanja, njene informacije i ono što je istraživala, jer je stručnjak u tome, a također ću vam na video ispod ovoga staviti i poveznicu na njena videa gdje sve objašnjava. Kao i uvijek do sada, sve informacije o kojima govorim ću vam prezentirati dodatne izvore kako bi se sami uvjerili. Nisam stručnjak, naravno. Nisam stručnjak u ničemu. Osim u jednom, smatram se stručan je kad vidim da netko ne govori istinu. Kada neko ne govori istinu, tada postavljam pitanja. I u ovom slučaju postavljam pitanje i želim da se o tome raspravlja. Želimo da znamo koje je najbolje rješenje za nas, a ne da nas samo uvjeravaju svojom propagandom, svojim pritiskom, ucjenama ili zabranama. Pogledajte prezentaciju gospođe Else Widding iz Stavangera.
La na na na, la na na na, na na na. Hey you, find out what's really true. Climate's always changing, now and forevermore. So be no one's fool. Your question is cool. Oh yeah. Searching the truth, changing your mind and be that one for the future. Hey, hey, you can change your mind and find out what's really going on. Hey, and we'll be fine. Don't swim in the sea of confusion.
Some people call me a climate denier, and of course it's not possible to deny the climate. I embrace climate change, but I deny the cost effectiveness and the benefits of the measures taken. So you may call me a climate affirmer. I think that's more correct. And I think it's very important to highlight the scientific uncertainty because it's a very chaotic system and it's a complex system, and the uncertainties are huge. And it's really too bad with the journalists and the politicians that, they just take a sentence from the UN and saying, for example, scientists are worried, and they are not examining the language game behind this. Who are those scientists and how are they connected to the academy and to politics, and all sorts of questions that need to be addressed. And I also think that it's too bad that our journalists today are not looking into those reports from IPCC, and most of the journalists don't even understand the difference between the science behind IPCC, the big scientific reports, and the political organization IPCC. So that's really a pity. And there's a huge difference between the uncertain statements of science and the cross-assurance of politicians. So you have to read more than only headlines. And I think Richard Feynman, who was a Nobel Prize winner in physics, he said it very well, that when he said that no government has the right to decide on the truth of scientific principles. So again, what I am against is the climate policy that I think creates profound human, economic, and environmental damage. I will come back to this, but we can't know what the planet will look like in 2100, not even in 2050. And if you spend some thousand hours with these reports from IPCC, you will understand this very well. We don't even know why the temperature went down during the Little Ice Age. Those 600 cold years between 1350 and 1850. So what were the causes? And as you know, climate change is what human does, how we affect the climate, and the natural variability. And if you don't know the natural variability, it's very difficult to know the human part of it. Although IPCC assumed that the natural variability is very, very small. It's only 0.1 degree out of those 1.3 degrees that temperature has risen since 1850. Sweden used to be a very poor country, and its availability of cheap electricity that brought us to where we are today. After World War I, we built out the hydropower in the north, and after that we built out the nuclear power in the south, and this is what brought the country to where we are today. And also, our energy system emits 12 gram carbon dioxide per produced kilowatt hour, 12, to be compared with, for example, Poland, about 700 something, and yet it's our 12 that really needs fast to get down to zero. And Jan Blomgren, applied physics professor, he said the fanatics destroyed Sweden's electricity supply. We now have access to less electricity than 40 years ago, and the electricity we have access to is also of poorer quality than before. The crisis in Sweden's energy supply is a result of a policy governed by incompetence, wishful thinking, and fanatism. I think this really concludes it all. Maybe the most serious part is that we have taken out 6 big nuclear plants, and in the south we now have the weakest grid in all of Europe in our area in the south. And we can't solve the problem with wind power because we simply don't have the electricity power that can stabilize the grid enough. We need big generators for that. which can't be provided with wind power. So there's a lot of problems because we have moved from the technicians that used to take care of the system and help out and decide what to do. And now it's something completely different. It's politicians and lobbyists who just decide what we want. We want a system with wind power. EU want us to build a system with a lot of wind power, although that's not what's needed. But still we should do it, and this is really serious. So climate policy, I would say, is not about climate. There must be no dissenting opinions, and some individuals even want to pause democracy. It's not about climate. It's a matter of politics and religion driven by humans' need for something to believe in. However, science doesn't compromise on the truth. So we must raise the awareness of the difference between what science say and what the politicians say. It's not the same thing. So how much can we affect the climate? Well, IPCC think that everything is depends on humans. This is from our assessment report 6, working group 1. And I'm not in conflict with this. I'm not saying that they are not right. I'm not a scientist, so someone else needs to say that this is not true or have other beliefs. In my book, I take for granted what's in the working group 1, physical science from IPCC. But I've spent a lot of time to understand the argumentation and all that, so I can explain those things. And I would say it doesn't really matter what the Western world does. The fossil fuels will increase anyhow. And I think it's very important that we understand that we are 1 billion out of 8 billions. So if we want to understand the development, how the world will develop, we need to figure out how does the rest of the world, those 7 billion, how do they think and what are their needs? And our climate and environmental minister, she says the government fully shares the view that this is urgent, that it is too slow. We have to become poorer really fast because that will give us a cooler climate. So we work with unattainable climate goals. You maybe remember from, this is from 2009 in Copenhagen. And this is where the 1.5 degree target came up. And I just want to, I don't know if you know, you can look at my YouTube channel. I have a video there that explains more in detail where those goals come from. But in 2009, before this conference, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, they were talking about 450 ppm in the atmosphere. And they were talking about 2 to 2.4 degrees. But then Ben McGregor, I think his name was, he invented this 350.org, and there were conferences. Tällberg Forum had a conference, and there was a big campaign for this 350. At the time, this was in 2007, and at this time, the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was already 385. So this target that then came to be translated into 1.5 degrees was already reached, you can say, in terms of ppm in the atmosphere. And here you can see that if we should reach 1.5 degrees, we're almost there already. So of course nothing will happen if we don't reach that target. So there's nothing to worry about, of course not. And that would mean that we would need to follow, I think it's the 1.9 scenario. I will come back to that. But we can only emit 600 gigaton, you can say, from now. And we need to go down very soon to zero. In 2035, we need to go down to zero. If we follow the scenario that IPCC are saying that we are now following, we will emit something like 2080, not 600. So science is not saying that this is doable at all. Science are saying that we are following the SSP2 4.5 and not that anything that equals to 1.5. So that's just scary to scare people.
Evo, drage narode, otvaramo teme koje se ne otvaraju u mainstream medijima, a smatram i da znam zašto. Zato što jednostavno te teme su zabranjene. Zato što novac ne dolazi ako se time bavite. Dolazi ako slijepo slušate i ako se bavite propagandom. Mi nismo ti koji se bave propagandom. Ne, mi nećemo slušati, mi ćemo razmišljati i postavljati pitanja. Nama je interes vas građana, a i nas kao običnih ljudi na prvom mjestu. Ako ste zadovoljni s ovim što radimo i kako to radimo, ako ste zadovoljni sa gostima koje vam dovodimo, nagradite nas kavicom. Dakle, kliknite Buy me a coffee, kavicu ili dvije, koliko kome odgovara. To je ono od čega mi radimo ovaj posao, od čega mi i pokrivamo naše troškove i ono što će u budućnosti biti i naš motiv za nastavak dalje. Hvala vam lijepo još jedanput na pažnji i vidimo se uskoro u novoj epizodi Slobodnog podcasta.
Nitko vas neće natjerati da se poklonite zvijeri, učinit ćete to svojevoljno, odbacujući vjeru. Bićete laka meta za zvijer, jer se niste podredili vjeri. Ako se ne podredite vjeri, podredit ćete se zvijeri. Toliko ćete se suobličiti sa ovim svijetom, da nećete ni prepoznati da ste u zabludi. Biće to najveća demonska prevara ikada i pravedno zaslužena osuda nad nepokajanim grešnicima.
Gdje su svi?